Greatest Ponzi Schemes in History. Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. If you're new here, welcome, and consider subscribing to my channel and click that little bell notification below. A Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud where money obtained from new investors is used to pay out old investors. Ponzi scheme operators frequently claim that they will invest your money and produce large returns with little to no risk. But as you can see, it's never going to happen. The name Ponzi was given to this fraud scheme following the actions of Charles Ponzi in the 1920s. First on the list is number 1, 15 million fraud of Securities Exchange Company by Charles Ponzi. Ponzi made a 50% return guarantee to investors for what he represented as an investment in international postal coupons. He could make an estimated $15 million in 8 months by persuading lenders to invest in these international postal reply coupons, which would make them wealthy. He paid phony returns to earlier investors using money from new participants. But when everything was revealed, Ponzi was charged with 86 mail fraud charges and sentenced to imprisonment. You can see that such schemes need a steady inflow of new money to survive, because they have little to no actual earnings. These schemes frequently fail when it becomes difficult to find new investors or when many existing investors withdraw their money. Now let's see some of the greatest Ponzi schemes in history. Number 2. $300 million fraud of Transcontinental International Inc. by Lou Pearlman. American record producer Lou Pearlman reached the pinnacle of success in the 1990s after forming the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. Using his fame, Pearlman persuaded banks and regular people to invest in a complete manufacturing business for over 20 years. Investors rapidly grew eager to join in the money the American producer had amassed for himself when NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys proved to be international success. He started as a scam man, persuading eager investors to invest in 2 firms that existed only on paper: Transcontinental Airlines Travel Services Inc. and Transcontinental Airlines Inc. Pearlman pleaded guilty in 2008 to charges of conspiracy, money laundering, and fake bankruptcy proceedings after stealing $300 million from banks and investors. Although he received a 25-year sentence, he passed away in a federal jail in 2016. Number 3. $860 million fraud of Moneytron by Jean-Pierre Van Rossum. Jean-Pierre Van Rossum started the Belgian stock market investment firm Moneytron in the 1980s. He asserted that he had created a statistical model to forecast stock market activity and outperform the capitalist system. Because investors trusted Van Rossum's assertions and his talent for self-promotion, he could stock $860 million US. He dealt in duplicate stocks as well. When the fraud was caught, he was given a 5-year prison sentence in 1991 for his participation in a Ponzi scheme. Number 4. $1 billion fraud of Mutual Benefits Corporation by Joel Steinger. Early in the 2000s, this life insurance provider called the Mutual Benefits Corporation was active in Florida. The business raised more than $800 million from investors by promising them enormous rates of return. In order to make it appear as though their money was being wisely invested, the corporation forged documents and utilized fresh investor funds to pay off previous investors. The business failed in 2004, and those responsible admitted to fraud charges. In the case, more than a dozen people were found guilty, including Joel Steinger, the scheme's organizer, who received a 20-year prison term. Number 5. $1.2 billion fraud of Rothstein Rosenfeld Adler by Scott Rothstein. Scott W. Rothstein is a disbarred attorney who served as a managing shareholder, chairman, and CEO of the now-defunct Rothstein Rosenfeld Adler Law Company. He was accused of using a Ponzi scheme to pay for his philanthropy, political donations, law firm wages, and lavish lifestyle. He managed one of Florida's biggest law companies, bringing in $1.2 billion from investors. His elaborate plan included 500 accounts in the United States, the Caribbean, and Europe, as well as phony agreements with foreign governments to purchase bonds or make investments in the customers of his legal company. Despite the prosecution's request for a 40-year term, he was given a 50-year sentence. Number 6. $3.7 billion fraud of Peters Group Worldwide by Tom Petters. Tom Petters, who defrauded investors of approximately $4 billion, was the brains behind one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in history. He ran several companies, including one that recycled electronics and one that provided venture financing in Minnesota, but all of them were fake. He would raise the pricing of the goods he was selling to his consumers and pay off old investors with money from new investors. When Petter's plan fell through in 2008, he was detained on fraud, money laundering, and perjury allegations. He's currently in federal jail, serving a 50-year term. Number 7. $5 billion fraud of Caritas by Ion Stoica. Ion Stoica founded Caritas, a self-help game, in the spring of 1991 in his hometown of Brasov. His aim was to quickly relocate the pyramid game to Cluj-Napoca, where most of the depositors were. About 3 million Romanians put their cash in the scheme after being offered the possibility to earn an amazing 800% return after 3 months. In October 1993, Caritas started delaying award payments, and the public soon found out that the agency owed $450 million. Stoica was taken into custody in 1994 and given a 7-year prison term for fraud. Number 8. $7 billion fraud of Stanford Financial Group by Alan Stanford. Alan Stanford, a Texas business magnate, directed a 20-year fraud that defrauded over 30,000 investors from over 100 nations of billions of dollars through his offshore bank in Antigua. More than $8 billion in deposits were made to Sir Alan's bank. Then, the Stanford International Bank's assets were blocked on February 17, 2009. After SIB and Alan Stanford were charged with massive fraud by American authorities. Prosecutors charged Stanford with diverting money to his own interests, including real estate and cricket competitions, in a scheme involving phony certificates of deposit. Stanford received a 110-year prison term in federal prison in 2012. Number 9. $10 billion fraud of MMM by Sergei Mavrati. In 1989, MMM was founded as an importer of consumer electronics. This financial deception started in February 1994, when MMM offered its initial round of shares at 65 cents apiece, promising a 1,000% annual return. Depending on the estimate, 5 to 40 million people could have lost up to $10 billion. Mavrati, who was conducting the investigation, eventually joined the parliament but vanished. He was ultimately arrested in 2003 and given a 4-year prison term. Number 10. $20 billion fraud of Madoff investment scandal by Bernie Madoff. The biggest Ponzi scheme in history was carried out by American banker Bernard Madoff, also known as Bernie Madoff. He died in jail in April 2021 while serving a 150-year sentence for securities fraud, money laundering, and various other offenses. He cheated thousands of investors out of around $64.8 billion over the period of at least 17 years. Madoff founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities in 1960. The company quickly rose to prominence and was the subject of 8 investigations by the Exchange Commission and U.S. Securities due to its remarkable returns. However, Madoff's downfall resulted from investors trying to withdraw almost $7 billion from its accounts during the world recession of 2008.
So that's all for today's video. If you made it this far, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon for more awesome content. Thanks for watching.